Hi, Esther. It's great to see you at the platform. And today we're going to speak of a very special thing that happened at Hastings Contemporary. I am not aware of anything like this anywhere else. So can you please give us a little story behind it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for inviting me to speak today, and I'm really excited to talk about the work we did with the robot, which really is, they're called telepresence robots, and it's, to kind of put it in a kind of clear way for people to understand what it is, it's like Skype on wheels, really. So you have a computer screen where your face is on the screen, and then there's a sort of pillar and then wheels at the bottom of the robot. But from home, you can drive around the robot and talk to people and interact just as you would if you were, in that space. And we'd started looking at work in this area because we were looking at ways that this technology could potentially help disabled people access spaces that they couldn't otherwise get into. But of course, when lockdown happened, that meant that everybody wasn't able to get into spaces, and we all became, in a way, disabled by that environment of not being able to go out and physically get in somewhere.
So this is a really interesting idea, where people who never had the same perspective as disabled people suddenly could feel themselves in the same pair of shoes.
Exactly, and understand what it's like to face that barrier, and also what it's like to feel isolated if you can't get into somewhere. And so, because I'm on the board at Hastings Contemporary, and we have a very forward-thinking, innovative board, I said, I've been doing this work with the robot. What do you think, Liz, about us trying to bring it to Hastings Contemporary? And they were all, to start with, quite confused as to what that meant. So they saw a little film about the work we'd done previously, and were then very excited about it. So we managed to get the robot installed just before the first lockdown happened. And we were just completely overwhelmed by the popularity, not only in the media, it drew great press attention, but also the people themselves, the kind of feedback that we were having, threw up some quite unusual things that we weren't expecting around the connections that people were making. So you could have 5 people at any one time on a tour, interacting with the live guide that was talking you through the works and the building, and you could talk to each other as you were on that tour. So people from all over the world were coming together to share that experience.
It was defining the whole idea of lockdown, when people could not communicate, and you gave them this really new, very innovative way of doing so. So whose project was it before Hastings Contemporary embraced it?
Okay, so I'm the head of something called the Accentuate programme, and I was working on a big academic project that was 8 university partners, and we were the kind of community partner. So it was coming out of an academic research project, actually, and that it is something that we now want to kind of explore, how we can maybe replicate this in other museum settings, other heritage settings, particularly in thinking about how disabled people and people that are going to remain isolated because they might need to keep shielding for longer, or just generally people with health conditions that often find spaces inaccessible to them, particularly cultural spaces, how this could be used as a tool, as part of the offer that cultural organisations provide for people and their audiences.
And presumably we won't be able to travel for some time, so it also can be a possibility to see the museums around the world, and also to curate certain cultural programs and to show people those things that they want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a whole new way of thinking about how we experience art, objects, and spaces. Because I think what's different, particularly about the robot, is because you can move freely through space, you get a sense of the environment that you're in as well, which is very different from, static kind of photographs of something. And also it's really that interaction that makes it unique, because lots of museums have done the kind of 3D versions of their spaces and their displays, but we all want that human interaction. So that interaction with the guide and the interaction with the people that are on the tour with you is the key thing, really.
Today we're also exploring some financial situations. So how expensive this project is, and whether in the future smaller galleries or museums or heritage funds would be able to afford it.
Well, the robot itself isn't that expensive. It's about £2,500, I think. But I think Liz will probably have more experience to speak to this, but training the staff to know how to use the technology, how to successfully guide people through it, you need staff resources. So that's something to consider. And in the first instance, we didn't want to charge people for the experience because it came out of a research project. So it was already funded to kind of give us more evidence for how this kind of work could work. But I think there is an opportunity in the future to think about whether these tours can be charged for, like guided tours are. So I think it's within the reach of people, even in sort of smaller scale organisations as well.
Yes, and it also gives an opportunity to earn more money through exhibitions and remote viewing. Of course, you're not just the curator for Hastings Contemporary, but you're also the curator for the AltPitch Festival. Now we're inviting all our audience to help us to define who is going to receive our 3 commissions. So can you tell us why people should go to the website and help us to rate the artworks?
Well, firstly, I mean, there's a fantastic array of works on the website. So it really is an expansive idea of what we think about in terms of humanity and technology. I think there's some really powerful works. I don't want to bias you, so just go and look for yourself. But there's, really strong dance pieces, humour through a kind of a one-woman show, and then through to thinking about what does VR mean, and what does new technology, how can that push the boundaries of what's art and what's technology. So do check it out, and please do vote as well, because all of this work is really worth looking at and considering with some thought, and then hopefully we can promote the artists that have created this fantastic program for us.
Well, I'm looking forward to your reviews in video and in writing. So thank you so much, and we will speak soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Anastasia.